So yesterday we had the discussion on challenges faced by testers. So today we'll be discussing one more topic or so so in any manual testing interview. So today objective of the session defect management related interview questions. Defect management related interview questions. So today objective of the session defect management related interview questions. So there are a few defects which are tricky, especially explain differences between defect severity and defect priority. So explain differences between defect severity and defect priority. Bug severity versus bug priority. First, let me explain you this question. Explain what are the differences between bug severity versus priority with examples from your current project. And especially interviewers main focus would be on so give examples for high severity and low priority, high priority and low severity, So explain differences between defect severity and defect priority, high severity and low priority, high priority and low severity. Okay, so high severity and low priority, high priority and low severity. So this was the interview question. First I wanted to explain you. So but before that, even there are other interview questions related to defect management. So we'll be discussing those questions also. Okay. So first of all, okay. So what is defect severity? So why we need to understand this topic? So defect severity, priority, easy to understand. So I really see many people confuse giving answer to this question in interview, but this is not that difficult kind of. It's very easy. First of all, so this topic, understand the concept level. This topic comes under defect categorization. This topic comes under defect categorization or this is defect classification. So this topic comes under defect categorization or defect classification. So this topic comes under defect categorization or defect classification. Defect categorization or defect classification. So this is the topic which comes under defect categorization or defect classification. So why we have to categorize defects? For example, if you take a hospital example due to COVID scenario, if you go to a COVID hospital, there are 10 beds, but 1,000 patients are waiting. Just for example, guys. Or 10 ventilators, but 20 patients are there. So can a doctor, how they can accommodate? So what they have to do? They have to, in such a scenario, they have to categorize 100 patients into high some severe, based on severity of the patient. critical severity patients, high severity patients, medium severity patients, low severity patients. So these patients has to be categorized: critical severity, high severity, medium severity, low severity. For example, if you are working in an environment, 100 beds, 10 patients, then if this is true, then categorization may not really required. Categorization may not be having the real meaning. Okay, so 100 beds, 10 patients. 100 beds and 10 patients. So in this area, so categorization may not be required. So what I'm trying to tell here, so this when we see we are categorizing defects. So based on two parameters. So based on severity, we are categorizing the defects. Based on priority, we are categorizing the defects. First, let us understand, on basis of severity, we'll try to understand. So on basis of severity, okay. So on basis of severity, what exactly the meaning of severity? So severity represents impact of the defect. Impact of the defect. So impact of the defect. So you can call it as a business impact, legal impact, financial impact, business impact, legal impact, financial impact. Okay, number of users impacted, impact on the brand, so business impact, legal impact, financial impact, number of users impacted, impact on the brand. Okay, impact on the brand. So whenever you find a defect as a tester, you have to visualize if same defect, if customer or end user identified in production, so what is the impact of this defect on the customer or business? So in terms of business impact, legal impact, financial impact, number of users impacted, impact on the brand. Okay, so based on considering these parameters, for example, let's say if the defect has below characteristics, let's say, so the defect so critical severity, this is a category 1. So when you can assign critical severity, so when you can assign critical severity, so when you can assign critical severity, if the defect has below characteristics, let's say, okay, so if this defect is impacting many users, and if it has legal impact, okay, if it is impacting more than 25% of transactions, this 25% is subjective, it may change from company to company. And if it is impacting many users and no workaround, and if it has no workaround, so what do you mean by no workaround? So no workaround means there is no alternative way to overcome this. I'll be giving examples. So if the defect is impacting many users, legal impact, and 25%, more than 25% transactions, and so if it is impacting, no workaround, so no workaround. So if the defect is having so the defect is having this kind of characteristics, okay, then these defects can be categorized as critical severity, critical severity, or these defects are also called as showstopper defects. These defects are also called as showstopper defects. So these defects are called as critical severity, or these defects are also called as showstopper defects. Critical severity, and this also called as showstopper. So showstopper or critical severity defects. So these defects has clear impact on the business. These defects has clear impact on the business. So if these defects are having clear impact on the business, it is going to critical severity. So then what kind of defects will be assigning to high severity? High severity. What kind of defects will be assigning to high severity? Okay, so in high severity, few users are affected. Not many users, few users are affected. Okay, so no legal impact. No legal impact. So less than 25% transactions affected. Less than 25% transactions affected. Just 25% is a number. It is not a universal standard. So less than 25% transactions impacted. So only few users impacted. No legal impact. Less than 25% transactions are affected. Less than 25% transactions are affected. And so we have workaround. So workaround means alternative path. For example, let's say a simple example I'll give you to understand what is workaround. Let's say you have a login functionality. So login with Gmail is one option. Login with user ID password is one option. Login with Facebook is one option. So login with Gmail, login with user ID, login with Facebook. So three options we have. For example, all three options failed. That means no workaround. So login with Gmail is working. Login with Gmail is working. But login with so user ID and password, login with Gmail is working. Login with other options are not working. Even though login with Gmail is not working, so other options are working. So login with Gmail, login with user ID, login with Facebook. Okay, so these even one option is working. So it may impact other options. So one option is working, so other options are not working. Still you have the workaround. So workaround best example in the real world is emergency exit. So workaround real so real option is emergency exit. So you have emergency exit gate. Why you go for emergency exit gate? Because it's an alternative way. That is the right meaning for workaround. There is a real example for workaround in the real world. So these kind of defects are called as high severity defects. Coming to medium severity defects. Coming to medium severity defects. So medium severity defects means. So medium severity defects means. So one or two users are affected. So one or less than or equal to one or 2% of transactions are affected. Okay, so no impact, negligible impact on the business. Negligible impact on the business. Major workaround is available. Major workaround is available. So one or two users affected, so major workaround is available. Okay, major workaround. So then you give medium severity. And coming to low severity. Low severity. So low severity defects are called as cosmetic defects. Low severity defects are called as cosmetic defects. What do you mean by cosmetic? Low severity defects are called as cosmetic defects. So when I say cosmetic defects, okay, so low severity defects are called as cosmetic defects. So when I say cosmetic defects, right? So font issues, so font issues are font issues, alignment issues. So font issues, alignment issues. So negligible issues kind of thing. Font issues, alignment issues. So it's almost negligible impact, no impact. Okay, so these kind of defects are called low severity defects. These are not impacting impacting zero users. So they're kind of some little formatting kind of thing. So no users impacted. So no users impacted. No users impacted. Okay, so so no users impacted. So this kind of defects are called as low severity defects. So these are the general characteristics. This may change from project to project. For example, if you are working in any database testing, if you are working in any database testing, or if you are working in any ETL testing, or if you are working in any BA testing projects. Okay, so business intelligence. So if you are testing any database testing, ETL testing, or BA testing projects, if you are testing database testing or ETL testing or BA testing projects, then it depends upon if you're testing database or ETL or BA testing projects. So this concept is it depends upon this concept is depends upon. Okay, for example, so data corrupted and not recoverable. Critical severity. Data corrupted but recoverable. High severity. So negligible impact on data. Few duplicates for 1-2 users. Few duplicates for 1-2 users. This is called medium severity. Negligible impact on few duplicates, 1-2 users. This is called medium severity. So no users affected. No users affected. It is low severity. So data corrupted and not recoverable. So like this. So project to project it will change. So if you go to SAP kind of a project, the definition of severity levels may be different. So this is the concept of how you categorize critical severity, high severity, medium severity, low severity. And now I'm going to give you examples. Okay, so let us say, for example, which project? Let's say e-commerce application. So we have some fnp.com or any application we can take. Let's say you tell me one application. For example, I can give example with what to say. So banking project. Let's say take one banking application. Let's take one banking application. Okay, so customer A has done a transaction. So whenever a customer perform a transaction, that kind of money transfer, money withdrawal, buy a share, any transaction, credit card transaction. So whenever customer perform any transaction, so money transfer, money withdrawal, buy a share or credit card transaction, So money transfer, money withdrawal, buy a share, any transaction. So each transaction must be validated by rules. Each transaction must be validated by rules. For example, if one of the developer has not written one logic correctly, For example, let me tell you in one of the project. So what happened? So for every transaction, so like there will be a customer ID. Customer ID is different. Customer ID is different. Transaction ID is different. You have the customer ID and you have the transaction ID. So once you have the customer ID and we have the transaction ID. So whenever you have the customer ID and transaction ID, so based on the customer ID, so all the customers before we process customers transactions, what we have to do? So is the customer in the AML database, anti-money laundering database. So is the customer is a terrorist, or is this customer a blocked customer, expired customer? So we have to validate those things. One of the logic one developer has not written correctly. What happened? Even though the customer is in blocked list, but transaction executed. So customer is in blocked list. The customer is in blocked list and the transaction executed. So customer is in blocked list and transaction executed. So when customer is in blocked list but still transaction is executed, so what we understand, it's a defect actually. So these are related to legality of kind of thing. So let's say blocked customers must not be able to execute the transaction. This is a government rule that is not implemented properly in the banking application. So it's a serious issue from the government. So it should be critical severity. So no matter whether it is a one transaction or two transaction, it need not to affect hundreds of transactions, hundreds of customers, even though one transaction, blocked list customer but able to perform transaction. So these comes under critical severity. Okay, so this is one example, and for example, high severity. So high severity. Okay, so in one banking application, each customer can do several transactions. So at least to 10 to 15 transactions like this: money transfer, withdrawal, apply loan, all these things. In one of the transaction, okay, right. So this transaction is related to buying of some shares. So in buying of shares, so this transaction is related to buying of shares. In buying of some trades. So there are different categories of customers. Premium customers, like they used to call it as alpha customers. So different categories of customers, alpha, beta. So kind of different categories of customers are there. So whenever they have different categories of customers, so in one category of customer, let's say they have 10 categories of customer. For 9 categories of customers, financial numbers are coming correctly. So whenever they do transaction, so the numbers so amount debited correctly, credited correctly. So 10 categories of customers has done the transaction. 9 category of customers getting correct results. 9 category of customers getting correct results. So one category, 9 category of customers getting correct results. One category, so some logic is wrong and they are getting incorrect numbers. So please ignore my spelling mistakes. They are correcting some incorrect numbers. So 10 category of customers, so 9 category of customers are getting correct results, and one category, so they are getting the incorrect results. So here in this case, in the one category which they are getting the incorrect results, so it is not a critical severity because 9 categories are working correctly. Only one category is not working correctly. If 9 categories are not working correctly, then we call it as a critical severity. But here only one category is not working correctly, 9 categories are working correctly. So it is not a critical severity. So for this, we have raised it as a high severity defect. We have raised it as a high severity. It's not a critical severity. It is not a critical severity. We raised it as a high severity defect. Okay. So coming to medium severity. So coming to medium severity. Okay, so medium severity means almost kind of a negligible impact, but it is not kind of a low severity. It may like affecting one or two customer, and we need to validate is this really problem with the code or any account settings. So like all the banking transactions working correctly for all the customers. So all the banking transactions working correctly for all the customers. So all the banking transactions working correctly for all the customers. Okay, but the problem what we observed, okay, so transactions are working correctly, but there are one or two customers which are facing issue. This is like account setting issue. This is account setting issue for that customer. Account setting issue for that customer. And let's say account setting, it could be a browser issue only for one or two customers. Browser issue only for one or two customers. So browser issue only for one or two customers. It's a browser issue only for one or two customers. Okay, so then it is going to be, whenever you face that such kind of a browser issue only for one or two customers, you cannot raise it as either critical or high. So we created it as a medium severity issue. So we created it as a medium severity issue. Okay, then so then coming what is low severity issue? So all the 100% transactions are working accurately. No issue with the transactions, but the report we are generating, there is a alignment issues in the report. There are few alignment issues in the report. The issues which we are generating, there are some kind of alignment issues in the report. So we escalated that alignment issues or format issues kind of thing. So these are not really affecting any user. Negligible impact. We call it as a cosmetic defects, and it is so cosmetic defects can be easily corrected also. Low severity defects could be easily corrected. So critical severity, high severity, medium severity, low severity. Critical, high, medium, low. So these are the different categories of defects. So critical severity defects. Okay, so examples also. I explained the concept and and I explained the examples. Now the understanding severity is easy only, but the problem comes with then what is priority. So severity and priority definitely different, right? So in one of the interview, what question they have asked me is severity of a defect directly proportional to priority. So severity of a defect directly proportional to priority. No. If it is true, that means the question is always if severity is high, priority should be high. No. So there are 90%. I can say the perfect answer is 90%. So majority percentage severity and priority may be directly proportional. So majority percentage severity and priority may be directly proportional, but there are situations severity and priority high severity, low priority, high priority, low severity. So there are some situations severity and priority may be directly proportional. There are some situations severity could be high, priority can be low. So majority of the scenarios what we see in real time also, severity high, priority high, severity low, priority low, but that is not 100% true. Okay, so this is one important concept or understanding you should have. If severity is high, always priority may not be high. There are chances that priority could be high or priority could be low. So then what is priority first? So so before you compare severity and priority, so what is priority? So priority means urgency of fixing the defect. So priority means urgency of fixing the defect. So priority is nothing but urgency of fixing the defect. So priority means urgency of fixing the defect. So or you can call it as a order of fixing the defect. Order of fixing the defect. So what developers do? So in any real-time project, so developers conduct daily. So daily they conduct bug triage meetings. Bug triage meetings. So developers daily conduct bug triage meetings. So developers daily conduct bug triage meetings, to discuss order of fixing. So to discuss technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defect, order of fixing the defect. So so technical impact, dependencies. So developers daily they conduct bug triage meetings. They conduct bug triage meetings number one. So technical impact, dependencies, technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defect. Technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defects. Okay, so these are the scenarios. Developers daily conduct bug triage meetings. So whenever they conduct the bug triage meeting, they discuss. So any dependency, for example, if defect 3 is fixed, then only we can fix defect 2. Or if we get any server access, then only defect 3 could be fixed. Defect 3 could be fixed. So fixing defect 1 is very important because 90% of test execution blocked. 90% of test execution is blocked. So fixing defect 5 is important. Evening we have customer review. Okay, so what I wanted to tell here, so they try to understand. So technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defect, time required to fix, and time available to release when we are releasing it. How much time we have to release this code? How much time we have to release this code? So technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defect, time required to fix, and how much time we have to release this code. So technical impact, dependencies, order of fixing the defect, time required to fix, and how much time we have to release this code. So these are the various parameters. They decide so in which order they are going to fix the defect. For example, just one example. Let's say, okay, so no dependencies, severity is also low, but so customer is asking about the defect. Customer is asking for review meeting. Okay, so it's a low severity, Many end users are not affected, but customer is very focused on that. So you should have, and so end of today we have to release. Let's say simple example. For example, so we are working on a 3 weeks sprint or 3 weeks release, 3 weeks cycle, 3 weeks iteration, whatever it is. Okay, so day one of the sprint, we find a defect. Okay, you have 3 more weeks to release. You have 3 more weeks to release. So whenever day one of the sprint, we find a defect. And how much time we have? 3 more weeks to release. So it cannot be high severity. Even though it's an important defect, it could be medium severity. We have time to fix. Okay, for example, so we have 2 weeks time to release. We have 2 weeks time to release, but developer need 3 weeks to fix. So then it's dangerous. It has to be high priority. So technically, how much time required to fix it? This is how tester can tell this number. So in reality, so severity can be given, can be modified by. So severity can be given or modified by either QA or BA, but priority it could be given by developers, because if you look at my discussion, how much time required to fix it, order of fixing the defect, technical dependencies, so any infrastructure issue. So these parameters can be decided by developers. So priority of the defect daily it could be discussed in the, so for example, as a QA, while raising the defect, you can use some XYZ priority. But so as a developer, they do conduct bug trials meetings, and during the bug trials meetings, they discuss about definitely so they discuss about priority of it. For example, today one defect could be medium priority, and today end of the day they came to know that so something more important it is, or something some dependency on it. So then tomorrow they may change it to high priority. So it is not the team is following one priority forever. So one priority for entire release. So one defect priority may change, depends upon the availability of the developers, bandwidth of the developers, urgency of fixing the defect. So all these parameters comes into picture. Okay, this is called priority. This is the concept of priority and severity. Now, enter your question now if you really understand the concept, giving examples to example to high severity defect versus high priority, high severity defect versus high priority. So giving examples, high severity defect versus high priority. Okay, it's so let's say any crash, any technical error, key functionality is missing, so any crash or technical error or key functionality is missing, major failure, so any crash or technical error or key functionality is missing or any major failure. So then for example, suddenly so blank screen you are getting, technical error, page cannot be displayed, key functionality is missing, then so key functionality is missing. Let's say you are planning to do some transaction. Okay, so add payee button is missing, key functionality is missing, then it could be high severity, and high priority. So high severity, critical severity, high priority, like high severity, high priority. For example, so this is example 1, and one more example, give example for low severity, low priority. So low severity, low priority. So low severity and low priority. So if you take this example, low severity and low priority example. Okay, so for example, low severity and low priority example. For example, any spelling mistake. So it should be the field should be displayed in the left hand side, but it displayed in center. Okay, so image little blur. So these kind of things so spelling issue, spelling mistake. So format issues, spelling mistake, format issues, alignment issues. So these things comes under even it's a low severity as well as low priority also. Low severity, low priority. And example 3, and example 3, it is going to be high severity and low priority, reverse order, high severity and low priority, high severity and low priority. So what is high severity and what is low priority? And so what is high severity and what is low priority? So what is high severity and what is low priority? And if you take this example, high severity and low priority, for example, okay, let me tell you, high severity and low priority means there is no urgency to fix the defect, but impact of this defect is very high. There is no urgency to fix the defect, but impact of the defect is very high. So there is no urgency to fix the defect, impact of the defect is very high. So let us say, for example, so you developed a application, and in that application, I can show you multiple examples. Let's say I wanted to create a Gmail account. Very simple example I will give for high severity and low priority. Okay, so if you are trying to create a new account, for example, this Indian flag, instead of you open in India, but instead of Indian flag, it showed China flag or Pakistan flag or any other country flag. Okay, so it's a UI issue. It's a UI issue. Business point of view, even though it's an alignment format kind of issue, but it's a very big trouble because it's a legality. So even though see functionality, see this flag, the flag logo may not impact the flow of the application, may not impact the functionality of the application, but still, so it's a high severity because it's a huge business impact. So it's a legal issue and it may leads to controversy. But if you report this defect to developer may tell, we are very busy with so many functionality issues. It's just a UI issue. For us, maximum time we need to fix this defect is 1 second. We are not going to write a logic to fix it. We are not going to build a new logic to fix it. Just in 1 second, we can resolve this issue. So developer is not ready to accept it as a high priority. It's a low priority for developer because developer may not require much time to fix it, and it is not affecting other defects, and it is not affecting the flow of the application, or it is not affecting the functionality of the application. It is not affecting the flow of the application, and if it is not affecting the functionality of the application. So these kind of defects are called as high severity defects and low priority defects. So these kind of defects are called as high severity defects and low priority defects. So let's say any logo mismatch, any brand name issue, any branding issue, or for example, so you are trying to buy a land, or you are trying to sell a land, or your father is giving you a property. In the document, instead of writing 5 acres, 50 square yards, 5 acres and 50 square yards, they have written 5 acres or 50 square yards instead of and or there in a legal document. And instead of and, the spelling mistake in legal document or entire meaning will change. Even though we can easily correct it, but it's legally binded, it's a critical severity, low priority. And one more example, they're expecting in interviews high priority but low severity. But high priority and low severity. So when such kind of scenario exists, high priority and low severity. So when such kind of scenario exists, let us say we are working on a release, and if this release is like having couple of sprints. This release is having couple of sprints, sprint 1, sprint 2. That's one release has multiple sprints, sprint 3, sprint 4. For example, so in sprint 1, we are doing requirement like task 1, that is, it's a requirement 1. We are doing task A, that is development. In sprint 2, the same requirement, task B, we are doing testing. In requirement 1, and we are doing task C, that is like, for example, review. Same requirement in some kind of fourth sprint, we are going for deployment. Now, this we are in sprint 1. Developer asked QA to test. Logically, QA work starts from next sprint, but informally, it's an informal test. QA has done based on the developer request. They found a defect. Okay, tester cannot give a high severity here because this is not in the tester scope of the work. Now, if the same defect gets in next sprint, tester may give high severity. Now, tester can give little low severity if developer fails to fix in sprint 1. And second reason, not only here in the first sprint, testing is not in the scope, but you have tested informally or you observed the defect. Okay, in the second sprint, if you get the same defect, then also you have to think about, because when it is going to be deployed, there is some time. It is not going to be deployed now. Okay, there is some time. For example, morning you found you observed a defect. Afternoon, you have to deploy. Then it should be critical severity and high priority. But here we have time to fix it. Okay, but even though testing team perspective, you have time to fix it. But developer, what is the task given to development? They have to complete development in sprint 1. So developer perspective, it is a high priority because they have to complete their work first. But QA perspective, low severity. So developer perspective, high priority, and QA perspective, low severity. Because so we have time to release and and we have time to test. We have time to release and we have time to test. Okay, so this is the severity priority concept, guys. Any interview question, you can derive answer from this discussion. Okay, so if you have any questions kind of thing, so ramana@qualitythought.in, please email. So any discussion you need, as I told. So you can use this mail ID for any career guidance, so anything you want to discuss with me about your profile, please you can use this mail ID.
Thanks for watching. For more videos, subscribe our channel and click on bell icon.